We don't deserve Notch, all right? Because here he is saying what everybody's been saying, and he's the guy to say it. The man, the legend, the creator of Minecraft himself came out and said in opposition to pirate software, and I quote, "If buying a game isn't a purchase, then pirating it isn't theft." This has been said around quite a while. However, Notch, to my knowledge, is the most in the industry guy, quotations, in the industry guy to say it. Now, I could be wrong about that. You let me know down in the comments below if I've missed somebody who is as prominent or perhaps more prominent than him that has echoed this sentiment that a purchase should be final. That's right. Unless somebody forgets to pay on their layaway video game, that sucker stays with you until you part it off to somebody else at a yard sale, internet, or real life. Okay? Now, that's to say that the world is changing very quickly. So these corporations are starting to feel the heat. All right. And so, even out there, we've got the Pokemon trading card game Pocket Dev requiring their staff to make AI prototypes of every project proposal. That's right. Now, I don't have a problem with AI. I have a problem with AI doing the job of humans, though, without human supervision. See, this is important because the AI does not possess the ability to discern against what is, pleasing to human beings and what is the best guess it has at pleasing human beings. We see all over the place now that there are novelists that are putting out books that are completely copy and pasted from Grok or ChatGPT and contain notes within them from the AI explaining how they met the requirement of the prompt given to them. It's very transparent, but it's also very lazy. You see? This is the problem that I have, and it's going to erode even more because you just check this out right here. We have the CEO of Intel saying that this is Intel, the chip manufacturer, that it's too late for them to catch up with the AI competition. They're not able to keep up with the 10 largest semiconductor companies out there. They're falling behind, even if they cut all the jobs imaginable and replace them with AI. It's just simply not going to happen. They fell behind here. NVIDIA and a bunch of other processors went out there and took over the market. And that's kind of where we're at. You have AMG out there. You have many others off the top of my head. Ryzen, I think, is the other one that's out there that's just really forcing them out of the market. So it doesn't matter if the subscriber count never changes. What matters is if we let the subscriber count change us. Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You don't just climb up in front of a microphone and start spouting off your opinions because you're a YouTuber. You do it because you're driven. We also have genius takes from the industry itself in response to all of this. Ubisoft says you need to destroy your game that you paid money for because we have decided not to service it anymore. That's right. So Chevy is going to send you a letter in the mail that says that nice Camaro that you bought from them, you can't drive it anymore because they're not making any more of them. And they're not going to have the dealerships able to work on them. So you got to destroy your car. You got to destroy that. You can't drive it anymore. They won't tell you how. They're not going to provide the method to do that either. You got to destroy it all on your own. Now, I realize that uninstalling the game and deleting it qualifies as destroying it. Yes, I understand that, but it is the typifying example of how ridiculous this argument is becoming between the provider of the content and the consumer of the content. We might as well just say, hey, pal, you're paying us a bunch of money for nothing. You're going to get some real cheap thrills if you ever fire this sucker up to begin with. And when you're finally having fun with it, we're going to take it away from you. That's right. When the player count drifts below the point where our shareholders think that we can get any money out of it, we're going to take it away from you. And so again, it persists even now. EA has run out and said, BT Dubs, October 2025, we're getting rid of the Need for Speed rivals. Bye-bye, you're screwed. See you in the next one. Thanks for your money. And that's what they did. That's what they did to players. Even got I'm Batman here. Not the real Batman, obviously. But he says, hurry, shut it down before SKG happens. And I'm pretty sure that's what went around. Because the corporations are under the belief that SKG is asking for them to keep everything going forever. And that requires a lot of staff, apparently. We'll get to those arguments in just a minute. But I wanted to lay out what's actually happening with these stupid dev companies that are complaining it's oh so hard. Check it out. Microsoft got rid of a bunch of employees here. They have 15,000 employees in 2025 so far, all in an attempt to be able to invest $80 billion into AI infrastructure. Okay. Now, that could be data centers, that could be all sorts of different generative AI that they want to use to compete with Google and all this stuff. Maybe they want is it Google? Yeah, Gemini is Google's thing. So maybe they want Bing to be able to do all of these amazing, awesome stuff that, Gemini and Grok are able to do. But they need a lot of money to do that, and they don't need a lot of people to do that. So that's the trade off. Now, again, we're about to hear that the SKG is unable to navigate these things because you see right here, these are their key claims that right now that private servers, if they're allowed, won't be able to moderate harmful content or enforce anti-cheat measures. Okay, that seems to be a horrible problem, but again, we'll answer that in just a minute. Allowing players to run private servers would present excuse me, I'm gonna puke on all this BS, pardon me. Allowing players to run private servers would present significant engineering and architectural challenges due to the fact they may be done with proprietary technologies and systems. So, again, it'll be answered in just a minute. Reputational harm. Allowing players to run private servers with online interaction possibilities could result in players using those games in ways that don't align with the game's company's brand value. Ah, yes, you could change those rainbow flags into American flags, and that would just be the worst thing ever, wouldn't it? Hmm. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. I sat down and I asked Grok to help me compare and contrast the arguments that were being made by Video Games Europe and the reality of what the Stop Killing Games initiative has asked for. So here you go. Number one, the nature of online games and discontinuation decisions. Video Games Europe says online games are dynamic services. Discontinuation is necessary for viability. Mandates would raise costs and deter innovation. Now, the larger complexity of all this is in their stupid 5-page PDF that I'm not going to go through because it's just paragraph after paragraph of wah. So here we go. This is from the Stop Killing Games Initiative website. So this is from their FAQ, and it says, no, we are not asking that at all. We are in favor of publishers ending support for a game whenever they choose. What we are asking for is that they implement an end of life plan to modify or patch the game so that it can run on customer systems with no further support from the company being necessary. We agree that it is unrealistic to expect companies to support games indefinitely and do not advocate for that in any way. Additionally, there are already real world examples of publishers ending support for online games in a reasonable way, such as Gran Turismo Sport, published by Sony, Knockout City, published by Valen Studios, Mega Man X, Dive, because it's just spelled different, so I don't know if that's the IV or I don't know. Published by Capcom, Scrolls, Caller's Bane, published by Mojang, the AB Duelist, published by Bandai Namco Entertainment Company. So it provides examples of how games have been, taken offline amicably. Let's put it that way. uh, the online infrastructure. And so, number two, the licensing model and ownership. VGE, that's the Video Games Europe, claims video games are licensed, not owned. No legal uncertainty. Existing laws suffice without ownership transfer. So, this is now what Stop Killing Games has to say to that. So, here you have it. The short answer is that this is a very large legal gray area depending on the country. In the United States, this is generally the case. In other countries, the law is not clear at all since licensing agreements cannot override national laws. Those laws often consider video games as goods rather, which may have consumer protections that apply to them. So, despite what the license agreement may say, in some countries, you are indeed sold your copy of the game license. Some terms still apply, however. For example, you are typically only sold your individual copy of the game license for personal use, not the intellectual property rights to the video game itself. All right, now there's a further quote on this to explain a little bit deeper. So they go on and they say, It mostly is within the United States, but not in many other countries. Many existing laws are not written for a scenario where the seller destroys the product sold to the customer after the point of sale, since this is not something that normally happens in the real world. The fact is, there is so much ambiguity on this practice that it is why we're pursuing so many legal avenues. Again, feel however you like about that, but the reality is that when you are sold a cheeseburger from McDonald's, they don't tell you to puke it up when they decide they're not going to continue that cheeseburger anymore. Number 3, player safety and security risks. Video Games Europe argues private servers remove moderation and invite security threats like malware and breaches. All right. Now, this is sort of legitimate. You're connecting through a server, which means there is some type of communication going on between you, your personal machine, rather, and the server, which, again, in some cases can leave you wide open to cyber attacks. This is not a lie. And so right here, it says SKG replies with, not at all. In asking for a game to be operable, we're not demanding all internal code and documentation, just a functional copy of the game. It would be no more of a security risk than selling the game in the first place, which again, we're not asking for the guts of the game. The server itself may be its own problem because, as I said, a third party server may have certain issues that a multi-billion-dollar corporate server perhaps does not. But we all know they go through Amazon, so it's not really any surprise anyway. So here's number 4, engineering and architectural challenges. Video Games Europe argues intertwined features make segregation difficult and costly, especially for older games. Now, SKG responds with, not at all. The majority of online multiplayer games in the past functioned without any company servers and were conducted by customers privately hosting servers themselves and connecting to each other. Games that are designed this way are all still playable today. As to the practicality of this can vary significantly. If a company has designed a game with no thought given towards the possibility of letting users run the game without their support, then yes, this can be a challenging goal to transition to. If a game has been designed with that as an eventual requirement, then this process can be trivial and relatively simple to implement. Another way to look at this is that it could be problematic for some games of today, but there is no reason this needs to be for the games of the future. And this is the big difference, is that a lot of these corporations come out and they say, wow, you want us to do this to all these old games and blah, 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 blah. Even Pirate Software came out and was like, well, wait until they try to do this to WoW. Well, again, nobody's asking for that. WoW, again, can work on a separate server. However, the situation that happens here, though, is that these companies want to tell you that they don't want to go back and do this to all these old games, blah blah blah. Excuse me, Stop Killing Games is not asking for that at all. That's not the case here at all. Over and over again, it has to be explained because Pirate Software and the corporations are making the case that, oh, you just want us to ruin our profit margins. It's not really the case. It's not really the case. Number 5, impact on investment, jobs, growth, and consumer choice. Video Games Europe says end of life plans reduce investments and jobs, leading to other costs and less choice. So, their argument in a more fuller context is that by doing all of this, they're going to end up having to fire people like they already are. They're going to end up with higher costs, which they already have $400 million to make Concord. Remember? That was an online game. That was an online game. Hmm, hmm. And less choice. So there will be less online service games. Oh no. Oh no. What are we going to do without being able to buy skins in Assassin's Creed Shadows for a single player game that you're most likely playing by yourself in your own bedroom, living room, apartment, however you live? Maybe you live in a van. But regardless, you're not showing that skin off to anybody other than the people watching your playthrough or the recording or a picture you took of your TV. Okay? That's, oh no, it's a tragedy, guys. It's an absolute tragedy. Anyway, gotta collect myself here. All right. Anyway, Stop Killing Games had this to say: it is extremely unlikely. The costs associated with implementing this requirement can be very small, if not trivial. Furthermore, it often takes a company with large resources at its disposal to even construct games of this nature in the first place. Small developers with constrained budgets are less likely to be contributing to this problem. Now, again, they want to tell you that there won't be so many indie games that have online services. I don't believe that for an instant. There's not a lot of them to begin with, and of the ones that are there, they're really not that complex. So again, I doubt that they'll have this trouble accommodating a play style that is available once online infrastructure is not available. So here we go. We have an additional quote on this one too. And it says here from Stop Killing Games, it is very unlikely and is far more likely to benefit them. Many video game developers have voiced their dissatisfaction with having a game they spent years of their lives working on destroyed by their publisher or being powerless to stop it. By having laws requiring the game to function, it would help their work and legacy endure. It is possible a small number of developers could find new requirements problematic if they were unprepared for them. But we anticipate that if implemented, there would be a significant lead in time, giving developers time to prepare rather, for these changes. And that's right. Up and down from indie to super duper quadruple A, sextuple A, maybe? I don't know what they're going to call themselves soon. These very important, self important video game companies, all of them can accomplish this. Again, SKG is not asking for these old games to be retrofitted. Just going forward, we need to make sure that these games can't be ripped out from underneath us. It's not that hard. We have number 6 now. Reputational harm. Video Games Europe says private servers could misuse games, harming brand reputation. So, this one's a little bit indirectly addressed because, again, it's one of those vague things where mods do this already. There was a huge thing with Nexus mods. That's right. There was a huge thing was with Nexus mods getting rid of like the Trump mods for Marvel games where you turn Captain America into Donald Trump. Of course, the boob enhancement mods for various video games that came out. Then there were the Dragon Age, the Veilguard mods that removed certain things, and those were banned. It's that kind of thing where, like, yeah, the server is going to wherever it's being hosted is most likely going to have mods in place in order to A, make the game more suitable to the players there, and possibly just to have more fun. There's no lie about that. And frankly, that's kind of possible already, honestly. So here we go. So the FAQ quote here from SKG is not while the game is being supported. All of our measures are focused on what happens to the game once support ends. So if disruptive players in an online only game become banned, but regular players may continue to play with active support, then they would not be entitled to run the game offline until support officially ended, which could be many years later. And again, I mean, if you're banned out of a server, be it a private server or a corporate server, you're still banned. That means your game don't work. Ta-da! It really it's just that simple. Whoever's running the server will ban somebody. If they decide to make a Wolfenstein server where it's more Wolfenstein than the good guys, okay, that already exists. There's a Minecraft server out there, I guarantee you, that looks like 1930s Germany, and it will surprise you with the accuracy of how 1930s Germany that looks. But Microsoft is not trying to destroy that actively. It's just one of the things that people do with the game, as regrettable as that may be. So, number 8, constraints from the third-party IP and services. Okay, so here you go. Video Games Europe says third-party licenses restrict modifications, dependencies make release impossible. So, let's use the Crew 2 for an example. In the Crew games, you're using real-world vehicles like the Ford Raptor, the Chevy Camaro, the Lamborghini blah, 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 whatever they're calling it now. I have no idea what the new Lamborghini is. Anyway, so it says from the SKG, no, while those can be a problem for the industry, those will only prohibit the company from selling additional copies of the game once their license expires. They would not prevent existing buyers from continuing to use the game they have already paid for. That's the case. You're not selling new copies of the Crew 2 after your license has expired to do so. This is a game that players already own that continue to want to play the game, meaning they already own the player's rights to play the game, right? Anyway, there's an additional quote here. It says, for example, for existing video games, rather, it's possible that some being sold cannot have an end of life plan as they were created with necessary software that the publisher doesn't have permission to redistribute. Games like these would need to be either retired or grandfathered before the new law went into effect. For the European Citizens Initiative in particular, even if it passed, its effects would not be retroactive. So while it may not be possible to prevent some existing games from being destroyed, if the law were to change, future games would be designed with the end of life plan and stop this trend in the industry. So again, we're saying it again and in so many different ways, but here we go. Video Games Europe, nobody is asking you to continue servicing these games or right? They're not asking you to go back and fix these games that have already existed, okay? Right? So going out for WoW example as what Pirate Software was using, okay? Remember Pirate Software was saying that World of Warcraft would be impossible to move over to a private server if Blizzard were to shut it down permanently and be done with it forever, okay? Blizzard, whoever they are now. You know, when they're not doing the breast milk thing. And that's again, like this is their sort of like their big thing is they're trying to tell everybody that this is an unreasonable request, even though that's not a request being made by Stop Killing Games. It's pretty astonishing. Consumer protection laws is number 9, and Video Games Europe has this to say about it. They say existing laws provide sufficient protections like transparency and reimbursement. And again, reimbursement within their terms. Okay, let's make that clear. It's not like when they shut down the Crew 2, they gave everybody their money back for shutting it down. They said, no, we're shutting it down. We'll see you in the Crew 3, losers. It's terrible. So SKG came out and said, while video games are primarily just for entertainment and not of much consequence, the practice of a seller destroying a product someone has already paid for represents a radical assault on consumer rights and even the concept of ownership itself. We talked about that cheeseburger. If this practice does not stop, it may be codified into law and spread to other products of more importance over time, such as agricultural equipment, educational products, media devices, etc. It is important consumers maintain a basic level of rights so as not to be overrun by predatory practices. It seems pretty blatant, right? It's sort of like the argument about owning physical games, right? As opposed to owning digital games. The digital game can be destroyed from your library. A physical game, well, they have to come to your house and take it off your shelf. It follows the same kind of logic that who owns this? What is the point of owning it? What's the point of giving a company $50 for permission to have a game taken away from you months, years, weeks later? None of these are really meant to last a decade, so at best you're getting 5 years out of them before they shut down forever. Is that worth it to you? I like to go back and play Sonic Adventure. I like to go back and play Sonic Riders. I like the Sonic games. I even play the old Zoids game. Remember that? Remember Zoids Battlefront? Wasn't that fun? I think it was Battlefront. Anyway, it was a Zoids game, and it was fun because you got to make your own Zoid and your own Zoid team, and it was kind of Final Fantasy tactics, whatever. It's kind of cool. Anyway, I like to go back and play that because I own that. I own a GameCube. I can make those things work without Nintendo's permission because they designed them to work without their permission. That's right. I don't need to call up John Nintendo, whoever's running Nintendo right now. I don't need to call John Nintendo and say, hey, is it okay if I fire up my GameCube and play a game from 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 12? I don't know when it was. A long time ago? And then they go, who are you? How did you get this number? You know, it's not that. You don't have to do that. And that's how this should behave. That if you buy a game, for God's sakes, if you're paying $50, $80, $100 for a game, you damn well better own the damn thing. I get these 99-cent mobile games can come and go and you won't notice, but god damn, if you're paying $50, $90, $100 for these things, they'd better be there forever. So you have an additional quote on this one. We're almost to the end. We're almost to the end. Don't worry. This additional quote from SKG says, while free to play games are free for users to try, they are supported by microtransactions, which customers spend money on. When a publisher ends into a free to play game without providing any recourse to the players, they are effectively robbing those that bought features for the game. Hence, they should be accountable to making the game playable in some fashion once support ends. Our proposed regulations would have no impact on non commercial games that are 100% free, however. So there you go. And it's true. When you play a free to play game, often the best parts of it are behind a paywall. And when you invest in all of that and then weeks, months, years later, that disappears. There goes all your money with it. And the corporation likes that. They get away scot free. They don't have to be responsible for anything going forward. And in Ubisoft's case, you have to delete their product when they don't want to service it anymore. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So here's the additional quote right here, and it says, the wording on the European Citizens Initiative is very intentional and is meant to solve the problem of video games being destroyed while maintaining flexible enough, while remaining rather, I'll get there eventually, while remaining flexible enough to give publishers and developers as much freedom as possible. If the initiative passes, it would be the EU Commission that decides the final language, not us. In light of this, it is best to keep the demand as simple as possible to minimize any chance of misinterpretation. And oh boy, that happened quite a bit now, didn't it? Not only can the specifics be disregarded by the EU Commission, but the more there are, the more that can take away focus from the primary problem, which is that of sold video games being intentionally destroyed. Man, this gets a little hurly-whirly for me. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get through this, but it's all like this backwards kind of double explanation speak. Basically, what that means is that it's going to be the EU to decide this, that the initiative's language is not going to be one-to-one law, as I've said before, as many people who have read this have said. It's not going to be one-to-one law. It's not even proposed to be one-to-one law. However, the language that's in it is meant to make the case as clear as possible. Now, I lied. There's still number 11 here. So the scope and impact um, of game types, these business models. Okay, so the idea behind all of this. So Video Games Europe, the proposals disproportionately affect online games, potentially reducing availability. So the situation that they're trying to put here is that we will make less games if we have to do this. We don't have a choice. You're ramrodding us into this. Okay, so here you go. And you have this right here. So here's from SKG. Stop Killing Games says, no, the market demand and profitability of these games means the video games industry has an ongoing interest in selling these. Since our proposals do not interfere with existing business models, these types of games can remain just as profitable, ensuring their survival. The only difference is that future ones will need to be designed with an end-of-life build once the support finally ends. This is not difficult to have if done from the design phase onward, and any costs to it are far outweighed by the potential sales in Australia and or the EU, and of course the United States. Of course, there's a little bit of additional information here, and it says most, if not all, countries have no separate laws regarding governing of the sale of video games based on whether they are single player or multiplayer. The primary distinction under the law is typically about whether the games are sold as an indefinite purchase or a subscription service with a clear end date. We do not see it as a product as productive to introduce new laws on this distinction where none currently exist. Thus, this would impact both game types. From a technical standpoint, multiplayer games can often be preserved with a comparable amount of effort as as single player ones. It is a deliberate decision by publishers when they choose not to. Furthermore, an increasing number of video games blend both single player and multiplayer modes together, making this distinction too nebulous for many titles to have effective protections if the two modes are treated separately. So there you go. This is the reality of what you're facing right now. And I want to remind everybody that the signatures are still here to, sign, I guess. The website's still up. You have until July 31st to sign this. Okay. I'm sorry for tripping up earlier. It's just all that herky jerky legal stuff just melts my brain sometimes. It melts my brain. I'm sure it melts your brains too. So I appreciate you making it this far. However, you're on your way to 1.4 million million signatures, not subscriptions. Sorry, million signatures on this. Okay. Now, these are European citizens that are allowed to sign this, not Americans, not anywhere else. Okay. So if you are an American or from another country and you're seeing this and you want to help, just share it around. There's plenty of Europeans out there that haven't seen this. There have been people in the YouTube comment section that want to tell me that every European has seen this and only the people who support this have signed it. Like, no. No, 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 no. Several billion people have not witnessed this Stop Killings Games initiative petition. No, no, no. At best, maybe 30 million have, okay? Maybe 30 million. And that's not the whole of Europe. That's barely the population of Canada, who can't sign this, by the way. And again, if you're Canadian, you got to share it around. Sorry, it's not our stuff over here in North America. It's their stuff over there. And it's important because their discussion that happens over there will wash back over onto our shores. And that's really what the most important takeaway is from all of this, is because the reality is these guys aren't going to stop. Even even the ex PlayStation boss had this to say about it. He says, reveals that players aren't signing as many, excuse me, that publishers aren't signing as many games as the jump from PS4 to PS5 doubled the price of development for very little improvement. Now, again, we had Pirate Nation come out and explain a little bit more of this, but Yoshida basically explains, for summary's sake, that all of this buildup is because Sony demands a certain level of production. Xbox demands a certain level of production. If you ever wondered why these AAA games are the ones that are costing so much money, the publishers are setting the bar so high. That's the reality. It was all such a good move at the time because everybody and their brother wanted to get hold of these cinematic masterpiece video games, movies that you play, you press, you have a quick time event in the middle of. But the reality is that this quickly burned out players, and you can see the Steam sales are proving that in reality, it just seems to be that fun games are the ones people want to play, maybe not the ones that are movies. You know, unless you're Kojima, I guess people really just want to play your movie. The guy should have made a Netflix original, but that's just me. And anyway, guys, you'll have to let me know down in the comments below what you think about all of this. And as always, good luck out there.